Tell me about what you were doing this morning. I think people might enjoy hearing about that.
Okay. So, Dojo University is this really great bagpipe resource
Yeah, they're not
for.
paying us any money.
Yeah, they're not. I'm not getting paid for this, by the way. In fact, it's quite the opposite. Um,
Yeah,
so
right.
they're this really great bagpipe resource for bagpipers of all levels, and they have lots of classes, lots of great instruction. They get in professional, top quality teachers to do sessions regularly,
Hmm.
and it's really awesome. And they had this intensive program. It's a 6 week program, and the idea is that it's basically a bagpipe boot camp. And you do these sprints, and it's like a hyper focus on these really key areas of bagpipes that the great bagpipers have down really well. So you go through and you figure out where you are on the bagpipe continuum and you're playing, and then you work from there. And it's guaranteed by the end of the 6 weeks that you will have improved drastically as a piper or your money back.
Hmm. Hmm.
So, when I saw that they were doing this, I was like, well, you know what? Like, I know that I have areas that I seriously need to work on, so I'll give it a shot. So I went ahead and signed up for it, and then found out later that the program sold out in 36 hours. I I was going to take a weekend to think it over, and then I
Yeah, good
didn't.
thing you didn't,
And
huh?
I was just like, man, I'll just, you know what? I'll probably sign up. So I'm just going to sign up.
There's a
So I
plug for
did.
impulsivity right there.
Yeah. So there's 24 students in it right now, and we're like halfway through, I think. I don't know. It's been a blur.
Yeah.
But it's hours of practice on different things every day, and it's painful, it's grueling, it's fun, it's exhausting. But I've seen some really great improvements, and I've also been able to really pinpoint issues that I have. I mean, the whole point of the program is to find and eliminate the issues that you have in your playing, and that is exactly what it is doing.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
I've bought a few like course packages from the dojo and
Hmm.
haven't finished any of them yet, but it is really great material. And actually, I guess after I said that, I realized that it's actually not true. We do kind of get money from dojo because the band has an affiliate link so that anybody who does buy stuff, like buy courses from them or sign up for a membership, we get, I can't remember how much it was. Like I think it's like a 30% kickback on membership.
Oh,
Um,
well, they don't. Well, I don't think that I have on there that I'm associated with Garden Valley.
yeah, I think. Well, don't. That wasn't intended for me to make you feel guilty or anything, Vera. I think it's just that we have an affiliate link, so anybody who
Yeah.
accesses the dojo via our link, it puts a cookie in their
Oh.
browser, and so then anything they buy, then gets sort of categorized as being via Garden Valley. So
Well, you guys aren't getting a kickback for me. Sorry.
cons, darn it. But if anybody does decide they want to do dojo stuff, be sure to check with myself or Scott, and we can get you
Hmm.
that link.
And I highly recommend it. Really, even if you've been a piper for a long time, it's easy to fall into a rut. And I think that, getting an outside perspective on your playing is a good idea. It can be really challenging. Like for me, I'm super embarrassed to play in front of anybody that is a good piper and knows what they're doing, because I know that I have issues. And so this has been a really huge opportunity for me to just not to kind of get over that. And I'm also taking lessons from another piper. It's been a long time since I've taken lessons from anybody, and oh boy, yeah, it's a thing. It's super embarrassing because I mess up all the time,
Yeah, it can be a
and
confidence
it's
booster though,
funny.
right? To go through that and be like, well, now I cleaned that up, so now I feel more confident about how I'm playing my paradiddles, or well, that's a drumming thing,
Yeah,
of course, but you know what I mean.
yeah, it because yeah. So I'll be playing something and I play it really well, and then I'll go to play it at my lesson and I screw it up completely,
Of course.
and I feel like sinking through the floor. Um, but it's a learning experience, and I need to do that, and it's a way of like exercising the demons out of your playing.
There you
There's
go. That's a
demons
good way
in
to put
there.
it. You got to find
They
them
come
demons
out.
and sprinkle some holy water on them quick.
Literally, like they come out in full force as soon as you're in front of anybody who knows what they're listening
Right, yep. The
to.
bagpipe priest is there, so the demons come out.
Yep. Anyway, so there you go. Yeah. So what I was doing earlier today, I was recording, playing a tune to submit to the dojo for them to evaluate and tell me everything I'm doing wrong and tell me what I've improved on and give me feedback for what I need to focus on for this next few days before the next sprint is due.
Yeah. Awesome. So now, Vera, I told you ahead of time, I want to hear a very specific story from you. So I want to
Yeah.
make sure we save time for that. But before we do that, I want to just ask you some general questions, some getting to know you stuff, bagpipe related and otherwise. So first of all, probably a very natural place to start. What got you into playing bagpipes? What sparked your interest? Earliest memories of bagpipes, that kind of stuff.
Well, so my earliest memory of bagpipes is watching them in the parades, and they were just this overpowering, amazing sound that just really stirred up everybody. I mean, the audience goes nuts when the pipes come walking by, but then they were in bed knobs and broomsticks.
Ah, yes, of course.
and and when she starts, doing that chant, and then the bagpipe, well, so you got all the soldiers and whatnot, the armor is starting to, activate.
Yeah, some of the coolest practical effects in all film history, for sure.
Seriously,
So much fun to
It was
watch.
great. And then the bagpipe started, and as soon as the bagpipe started, it was like, oh, it's going down.
Mm-hmm.
Like, these guys have had it. They don't know what's cut and what they're messing with now because there's bagpipers involved. And it was just this incredible, like, just the visuals of just these bagpipes. It was just so impressive to me. And later, so my parents had a rule. You had to learn an instrument starting in 3rd grade. So between 2nd and 3rd grade, you had to decide what instrument you were going to play. And my parents had that as their idea because they believed that playing an instrument, especially as a child, helps you with many aspects of your life. It helps with discipline. It helps with, giving you something to focus on and learning a skill and a talent, something that you can be proud of, as a child. It was really important to them. So it was, you pick an instrument or you have to learn the piano. And that was the threat. And none of us wanted to learn the piano because we had friends that were learning the piano and it looked like a nightmare.
Yeah.
And Susan's mom across the street, she taught piano, and so my mom said, you either learn piano or you're taking lessons, and I didn't want to, so.
Didn't want to learn
So-
piano, so it's like, well, I
Yeah.
guess I'll do bagpipes.
Seriously, yes. So I'm in 2nd grade. I am one of the shortest kids in school at the time. I weighed maybe 45 pounds, so, I was about the size of a bagpipe myself.
Yeah.
And they said, "Okay, what do you want to play? Have you picked an instrument?" I said, "Yeah, I want to play the bagpipe." And my parents, oh goodness. So from their perspective, my oldest brother, who was 4 years older than me, had picked the violin. Now, anybody who has been around a child who is learning a violin knows
painful.
that will give you migraine headaches within
Yeah.
5 minutes.
Yep, that's a trial for sure.
Oh, man. So they had 4 years of violin. My next brother, who was 2 years older than me, had picked the drums.
Oh boy.
So they had the drums, a really bad violin, and now a bagpipe.
You were just the next of the apocalyptic horsemen here of
I was-
audible
we're all just-
destruction.
We're all just one-upping each other right there.
Yeah. What comes next? Oh, please, not the accordion.
Oh, jeez. Yeah. So they said no. They said, nope, you're not playing the bagpipe. We don't know where to get them.
Oh,
We
sure,
don't know how
yeah.
to get you lessons. They're probably too expensive. We don't know anything about these instruments. No, pick something else. And I was super heartbroken and sad. But there was a gal through the block that was in the bagpipe band in the high school. And my mom talked to her and said she wants to play the bagpipes, but she's so little, and they're really expensive and they're loud and we don't know what to do. And she recommended flute.
Oh, sure, yeah.
You can transition from flute to bagpipe pretty easily. And so my mom, she brought that to me. But at that point, I decided I wanted to play the harp.
Mm. Okay, yeah, something else that's really easy to get a hold of and not expensive. Perfect.
Right? She said no, again, for all the same reasons. I was too little. They're too expensive. They don't know where to get them. She said, how about the flute? I talked to this gal in the bagpipe band. She said if you start playing the flute, that you can transition from bagpipes, or to bagpipes from the flute. And I said, oh, okay. So I settled on the flute. So from 3rd grade through 8th grade, I played flute. And I was like number 1 chair a lot. And it was so much fun. But at the end of 8th grade, a few things happened. My band teacher, Mrs. Erickson, love her to death. She's amazing.
Oh, Connie.
Yeah.
Yeah, I know Connie. She's wonderful.
Yeah, she got up. It was like one of the last days of school. And she said, okay, guys, here's the thing you need to think about. If you want to go anywhere with your instrument, you need to make sure that it is a unique instrument.
Mm.
If you think you're going to go play in a band, like in a college or university, how are you going to stand out if you're the 500 flute that they've seen that day, or clarinet or saxophone? You need to stand out. So you need to play a unique instrument. Think of like the oboe or the bassoon or the bass clarinet or, the bass flute. She's throwing out all these things, and I was a little annoyed because I'd spent all of these years practicing flute and I was super good at it. So I was super annoyed. But then my geometry teacher, Mr. Smith,
of course, he is like the patron saint of everybody who's ever been on this podcast.
I know, right? He goes, hey, we're going to start a bagpipe class down here at the junior high, and it's starting next year. And I was like, really? You don't say.
I see so many stars aligning for you at this point in your life, Vera. It's the unique thing. It's now potentially an act of rebellion against your parents as you're entering teenage years, so that's perfect as well. It's living out a childhood dream.
Yep, everything lined up, and those are all of the reasons that I was like, I'm doing bagpipes. So I went home. I was so excited, and I said, hey, look, they're starting a bagpipe class. It starts next year, and I want to be in it. And my parents said no, for all the same reasons again. No, you're not playing the bagpipes. We don't know how to get them. They're too expensive. We don't have money for bagpipes. Mm-hmm. And I was heartbroken. But my grandfather overheard that conversation, and he loves the bagpipes.
This is such an important point, Vera. I feel like if any young aspiring piper ever happens to hear this, or if anybody can spread this information, let children know it's the grandparents who have the disposable income and are very likely to be very interested in the bagpipes. So if your parents can't do it, go one generation further.
Yep, exactly. So he found out, because I was super sad, and he asked what I was sad about. I said, well, my parents say that they don't want me to play the bagpipe. And he said, if you want to learn the bagpipe, I will help you. What can I do? And I said, well, the bagpipe is really expensive. He said, I'll make you a deal. If you want to learn the bagpipe, I will buy you your first set of bagpipes. You just pay me back when you can. And I was just so happy. My grandmother, though, was sitting next to him.
Yeah.
She doesn't like bagpipes. She was not on board. She was so upset with that idea. Anyway, so I talked to Mr. Smith, and I said, I want to join the bagpipe class. My grandfather's going to support me. He says he can get me a set of bagpipes. And Don said, you don't need to get bagpipes right away. You actually start on a practice chanter. And he gave me Helen Scott's name and number. And he said,
another
go
wonderful
to
person.
Helen Scott.
Helen Scott's
I mean,
awesome.
Everybody who's been piping for a while, especially down in the Payson area, everybody is familiar with Helen. She is a wonderful lady.
Yeah.
So I went over to her house and picked up a rosewood practice chanter.
Ah, wonderful.
A green paperback book and a cassette tape.
Nice.
Yeah. And I took that home and I started right that day. I was so excited. And so by the time school started 3 months later, I was already playing several songs.
Awesome.
And that was great. And Susan was in the band, and we had so much fun. It was just a blast. The class was great. Miss Erickson, she was real mad. She actually pulled me out of my French class.
Oh, was this, had you left flute entirely in order to start playing bagpipes?
Yeah, I didn't have room in my schedule.
I see.
Originally
Yeah.
had band in my schedule, but then because of all the classes I was taking, I didn't have room for seminary. That made my parents real mad.
Yep. It's not
So-
non-negotiable.
Yeah, I had to drop something, and I wasn't going to drop bagpipes.
Well, so what did you tell what did you tell Miss Erickson? Did you tell her, well, this is your own fault. You told me to find something original.
Oh my gosh, that conversation. So I'm in French class, and all of a sudden Connie pokes her head in the door. She sees me and she goes, "Can I speak to Vera?" and my French teacher's like, "Yeah, go ahead." So I go wandering
In
into
French,
the hall.
please.
Right, en français.
Yeah.
So I go into the hall, and she's like, "Hey, I realized that you haven't been in class this week." Now, mind you, this is like the third week of school.
Yes, it's been a minute.
And I noticed you haven't been in class this week. What's going on? Are you just sloughing or what? I said, "Oh, I actually haven't been in band all year." She's like, "You haven't?" I said, "No, I'm not in band this year." And she's like, "Why not?" I'm like, "Well, remember last year at the end of the year, you said that in order to get somewhere in life playing music, you have to play a unique instrument. Well, they're offering the bagpipe class, and I'm taking bagpipes this year." And
She's like,
she
not
was-
that unique.
She was not happy. Oh, she was not happy. She asked me to change my schedule around so that I could take band.
Yeah.
I told her I couldn't. I was like, the only class I can drop is seminary, and if I do that, I'm grounded for life.
Yeah.
My dad will take my cat to the pound. He will take my bird back to the pet shop. He'll make me lose my job. Like, these are all of the threats he gave me if I did not do seminary. I'm like, look, I have no choice.
Yep.
I will live in a prison if I do not, if I get back into band. So
Yeah.
anyway,
So
she was
bagpipes
super
it was.
upset.
It had to be.
Yeah. Anyway, so she was upset, and there was nothing that I or she could do about it. So that's where we was.
I see. So now I know Vera, that you played with Payson High School Pipe Band and with White Peaks, and I don't mean to skip over all of that. I think maybe we could circle back and do another interview, and it'd be a lot of fun to get more of those details. But I
Well,
want to
actually,
make sure.
I never played with the high school. Pipe
Oh, did
band.
you not play with it at all? You just went right to White
No.
Peaks?
No. So, in fact, it was because of that White Peaks came around. You can thank the high school pipe band for White Peaks, because what happened was they did tryouts, but the tryouts ended up being a popularity contest, and so
Oh, for the high
quite
school
a
pipe
few
band.
of us that were really good players at the time. We were even on bagpipes. We had sets of pipes from the high school because they had 6 sets that were available, and they asked Don to pick the pipers that he felt like was ready for bagpipes. He picked me and Corey and a few others, Jake Moody, Justin Hadley, Joey Wilkinson. He might have picked Susan. I think he did.
He'd better have.
Yeah, I know, right? How dare you if you
Yeah.
don't. Anyway, so he picked 6 pipers, and we went up to the high school and we got these bagpipes, and we had been on bagpipes for a solid 3 or 4 months when the high school tryouts happened. And so me and Corey and Susan and we all went to try out, and we knew the tunes. We could sight read well. And I felt like we all did really great. And then there were other pipers that tried out that were brand new to the pipe class that year or that semester they couldn't even play through Amazing Grace. And they got into the high school pipe band. And we were asked to give our bagpipes to them since we weren't going to be in the band. And
This is scandalous.
It was a really devastating moment for all of us as they were reading out the names of the pipers that made it into the band. It was just devastating. Like, they didn't pick me, they didn't pick Corey, they didn't pick Susan.
I gotta say, part of this is just remarkable to me because, of course, like, when I was in the high school pipe band, just shortly behind you there, it was like, rarely did we have enough, like enough pipers. And I know that's one thing that Diana struggles with right now is getting enough pipers in there. I cannot even conceive of any band, high school or otherwise, ever being like, we only want this many pipers and drummers, like we're going to cut it off. Like, what kind of mentality is that? Just get all you can,
At the time, the bagpipe band was huge.
Yeah, so
Those it's just of bagpipes
that's like I'm like
bagpipes.
hearing about a promised land, I'm just like, what a beautiful situation to be in, that like you have so many bagpipers,
Yeah, well, and the high school pipe band had been maxed out for years at that point. Like, they weren't worried about losing numbers.
Were they still a part of the marching band program at the time, or had they split to
yeah.
be a separate thing?
Oh, they were part of it. They were their separate thing, but they were also part of it. Like, at every football game, the bagpipe band would come out. And let me tell you, every time that band would come out, it was such a big deal, and the crowd would go nuts. Because you would have the marching band out there on the field doing their thing, and then they'd always reach, like, this crescendo part of their performance, and then the bagpipes would come in from some side somewhere and would be part of it and marching down the middle, and everybody would just lose it. I mean, it was a huge deal to be in the bagpipe band. And somehow that changed. And it changed within a few years of me being in high school. But yeah, like, at that time, they could afford to do that. They could afford to be that picky and say, we only have 6 sets of bagpipes available out of the 18 sets that we have. So yeah, it was unfortunate. But what happened was Don, he couldn't, number one, believe who was accepted and who was not. And it made him very upset at the high school because he couldn't figure out why they picked who they did. And they had admitted that they picked some of the guys because they just thought they were cute.
Well, I mean, that's...
I know. They wanted some cute pipers in there, which is fine. I get it.
But,
yep. They also picked pipers who couldn't even play Amazing Grace on a chanter. So, I mean, it was no mystery what was going on.
Well, if you'd been a cuter guy, Vera.
Oh, I know, right? That's the problem right there. Anyway, so they made us give our bagpipes back, which really was a devastating thing. And Dawn was sitting there like, I have 4 excellent pipers on my hands. Like, not, excellent, but good enough.
Off to a good start, at least, right?
Yeah. And he got this great idea to start a band from it. So he did. He called up some of his old piper buddies that weren't playing anymore, some of his old acquaintances, and asked if they would like to be part of it, and they did. And then he had those of us that were new, and we were all taking lessons from him anyway. So, I mean, it was just one more night a week, just hang out with Don and everybody else and have a blast and play. And it was so much fun. So that's how White Peaks got started. And
very cool.
There was actually kind of a rivalry between us and the high school pipe band for a while. But we knew that after a while, the high school band would kind of be a feeder band for White Peaks, since we were now the non-high school pipe band in the area,
It's really good for any band to have a feeder program like that. My goodness, if you can have that set up, that's something to hold on to for sure.
Oh, yeah.
Any band can really benefit big time from that kind of situation.
Yeah. But anyway.
So there's our origin, and I do want to hear more about other experiences and fun times you've had with playing with pipes and stuff like that. But I want to make absolutely sure that we have time. So give me this story, Vera, the harrowing, terrifying, soul-crushing story in all of its glory. I'm just going to sit here quietly. Actually, I have a funeral to play today, so I might start kind of getting ready while I listen, but I'll be quiet. Tell me the story. Let's hear it.
Okay, so it was May of 2001, and I was heading to Seattle to visit one of my friends, and I was heading there with my boyfriend at the time. His name was Chris, and I was taking my bagpipes with me so that I could play because I played everywhere and all the time. Um, and on top of that, I had a big scandalous secret. I was 5 months pregnant, and nobody knew. Nobody in the band knew. My family didn't know. Nobody knew.
That's a long time to
And
keep that hidden. I
well,
That's
I
impressive.
I wasn't showing at all.
Way to go.
No, I was still wearing size 0
You were
jeans.
sucking that baby up inside your ribs.
Man, no, I carry back. So yeah, I didn't get very big at all. I had to argue with the doctor about how far along I was. But at this point in time, I didn't know that I was pregnant. I thought that I might be, but I wasn't positive because I thought I'd had a miscarriage. Anyway, so I was heading to Seattle with my boyfriend, and we were in his car. Now, I have a rule with driving other people's cars, and this is what I've been saying since high school. Never let your girlfriend drive your car because she'll wreck it. And I mean, I was saying it as kind of a joke, but I was pretty serious about it at the same time. And Chris was driving a brand new 2001 Hyundai Tiburon. I'm sorry, this was the year 2000, not 2001. So he was driving a 2000 Tiburon. And if anybody is familiar with those, it's a very aerodynamic, rounded car. And it had a sunroof, and it had all the accessories and all the features. This thing was decked out. And at that time, I had been driving a 1987 Volkswagen Fox. It didn't even have power steering. It was a manual, which I love driving a manual. Those are wonderful vehicles. And the Tiburon was also a manual. And so
Yeah, I'm just googling images of both vehicles right now, setting them side to side, and if there is one major difference, it's definitely aerodynamics.
the Fox was a box on wheels.
Yep, the Fox is a box for sure, and that
I
yeah.
love that car. It's so ugly, but I love it. And the Tiburon was so nice.
Like you can just see air slipstreaming around the front end of
Yeah.
the Tiburon for sure.
Yeah. So we take off early in the morning, and we make it to Boise. And once we were in Boise, he says to me, "Okay, I'm kind of tired of driving. It's your turn." And I said, "No, I'm not driving your car." And he said, "No, it'll be fine. It'll be fine. You can drive my car. You're not going to wreck it." I'm like, "No, my rule is never let your girlfriend drive your car because she'll wreck it." And he said, "No, go ahead and drive it. You'll be just fine. It's a manual. You know how to drive a manual." And I'm like, "I drive an 87 Volkswagen with no power steering." This is a 2000 Hyundai Tiburon.
Yeah, it's a different game.
Yeah,
Whole
and,
different
like,
animal.
this car is so new, like it's ridiculous, and it's got sports suspension and sports steering and all kinds of bells and whistles that my car can't even dream of. I mean, my car didn't even have a clock in it. So, um, anyway, so he convinces me there in Boise to go ahead and start driving his car. So I reluctantly did. And so we're driving along, and he decides he's going to take a nap. And I was like, all right, cool. Well, they tend to pave the roads out there the same way that they do in Utah, where if it's a kind of a road that's not as traveled, they'll lay a bunch of gravel on it, and they don't really pound it down. So I'm driving along, and I go to change the CD in the CD player. And when I look back up, I have drifted to the left quite a lot.
Do you happen to remember what CD it was? Just so in my mind's eye, I can have a soundtrack for what's about to happen.
Sabotage.
Oh, wow. Perfect. Perfect.
Yep.
Okay.
I just finished listening to Dead Winter Dead, and I was putting in Wake of Magellan. So yeah, I just had in my mind, I'm like, man, I really want to listen to Wake of Magellan right now. So I look up, and I had drifted, and at this point we were about 50 miles west of Ontario, Oregon. So we had crossed into Oregon just by a little bit. And we're going along. And I hit gravel. Well, we were on gravel when I noticed that I had drifted to the left. I wasn't quite in the emergency lane, but I was far enough to the left that I wasn't comfortable. And I was going 85 miles an hour. So I turned the wheel just a tiny bit, and it didn't respond because I was on gravel. And so I panicked, and I really turned the wheel, and I overcorrected. And that little car did a 180 on a 2-lane highway. No problems. Didn't, like, it just whipped right around. And we wouldn't have rolled except that I hit a lip of dirt off the side of the road. Hit that lip of dirt, and that car flipped. And we rolled 3 times. And I was sitting there holding the steering wheel.
Did your boyfriend wake up like mid-flip, or was he...
Oh, yeah, he woke up mid-flip.
Good heavens.
It was super loud. It sounded like a train was rolling over us. And I was holding the steering wheel, and I was seeing, out the windshield, and I was seeing sky, ground, sky, ground, sky, ground. And I was even saying that to myself, and I said, oh my gosh, he's going to kill me,
At that point. At
All
that
of
time.
this is going through my head, and we haven't even stopped rolling yet. And meanwhile, Chris is going, "Wah!" and waving
course.
his arms around, which was good. He caught all of the glass that was flying around, turns out.
So none of it had to get to you. That's perfect. He absorbed it all.
Yeah. So we landed upright on a fence off the road. It was easily 30, 40 feet off of the road. We landed on a fence, and the car had stopped rolling. And I just kind of sat there holding the steering wheel, and I slowly looked over to Chris, and he was just kind of sitting there dazed, and he looks over at me, and he goes, well, at least we're not dead. And
That's
he goes
looking
to
at the glass half full.
Yeah. He goes to open his door, and his door won't open. And I turned off the car at that point. The car was still on. It wasn't moving, the wheels weren't going, but the car was on. So I turned off the car, and Chris climbed out of the sunroof, well, what used to be the sunroof, and I kind of sat in the car for a minute, like, man, that just happened. Like, I totally wrecked his car.
Yeah.
But he didn't yell at me. So I climbed out, well, I opened up my door. My door worked fine. But I also sat there and I looked for a second out at the inside of the car, and it was very interesting. The windshield on his side was completely shattered and caving in. On my side, it wasn't even cracked. The sunroof was gone. His passenger window was gone. The window directly behind that, this tiny little triangle window, was gone. The entire back windshield was gone. But my window, like my driver's side window, and the little triangle window right behind me was still there. The side mirror on my side was crumpled down. On his side, it was completely gone. We both had tongue rings, and they were sitting in the middle console, and there was a napkin sitting on them, along with some of our jewelry. He had some earrings, and I had some rings, and he had some rings. We had all of our jewelry sitting in this center console.
Now you'd taken the tongue rings out yourself, right? They hadn't been like...
Oh, yeah, we took those out ourselves.
Okay, I was like, wait, just like the crazy rolling of the car, your tongue rings had flown out, and they landed together?
That would have been crazy. No, we had taken them out because when we stopped in Boise, we got something to eat. And so we took our tongue rings out while we were eating, and we had just set them in the middle console, and we hadn't put them back in yet.
I see.
Yeah. Because, I mean, sometimes if you're eating and you have a tongue ring in, and both of ours were surgical steel, if you bite on those, they can break your teeth.
Oh, yeah, I'd imagine.
So we were both in the habit of taking the tongue ring out while eating so that we weren't in danger of breaking our teeth. Anyway, so the napkin was still sitting there, and all of our jewelry was still sitting under that. And anybody who's been in a Tiburon, you know it's a really small car. There is less than 6 inches between you and the passenger when you're the driver. And so that little console between us was really small, but everything was still sitting there. I wasn't wearing shoes. Like I had taken my shoes off and they were just sitting down by the seat, kind of almost under it in a way. They were still sitting there.
Huh.
And then on top of that, looking at Chris, he had glass in his face and all down his left arm, especially. His shirt was shredded on the left side. Like from his chest over was shredded. And he was bleeding. And there was glass in his arm and glass in his hand and glass in his other hand. And I was just like, oh my gosh, he's bleeding. But then I looked at myself. I had one tiny nick on my right hand. And I still have the little scar. Anybody who wants to see it, I'll show it to you if anybody, listens to this and wants to see the scar. It's about 1/16 of an inch long, and it's by my knuckle. And that's it. That's all I had.
Just
and
a
it had
tiny
already
little
stopped
baby
bleeding.
scar.
Yeah,
Wow.
one tiny scar. And I'd already stopped bleeding. Like, it didn't even bleed long enough for, like, a full drop of blood to happen. Anyway, so after I turned off the car and Chris had climbed out of the sunroof and he started walking up to the road, I got out of the car. And this trucker that was driving eastbound had seen the accident, and he was out of his truck and he was hauling over to us as fast as he could. And he could not believe that we were alive. He said that he had seen accidents that were less severe than that, and nobody walked away. Oh, and the airbags didn't even go off, by the way.
Really?
Yep, because all the damage happened to the side panels, none to the front panels where those sensors are. So, got out of the car, and Chris had managed to make it up to the road, and some good Samaritans had stopped, and an ambulance was on the way. The police were on the way, and I mean, there wasn't a whole lot to do. Chris was up at the road. He'd gone into shock, and so he was sitting on a blanket, and there were people around him, and there was nothing I could really do. So I started collecting our stuff that had flown out of the vehicle, because we had a bunch of, we were heading to Seattle to spend like a week there. So we had bags and stuff, and I had a duffel bag, and he had a duffel bag. We both had backpacks. We both had things. So I'm walking around collecting up our stuff. And
And let me just pause you, Vera. All of the story has been good and terrifying, riveting so far, but this is the part where my palms really start to sweat.
Yeah. Because my bagpipes were in the car. They were in the back on top of the duffel bag. So I'm walking around collecting stuff, and the police show up. And I talk to them. Well, they come down, and they're like, what are you doing? I'm like, oh, I'm collecting up our stuff. And they're like, our stuff? You were in that car? I'm like, yeah, I was the driver. And they sat there looking at me, and they're like, no, there's no way you were in that car. I'm like, yeah, I was driving the car when it crashed. And they look at Chris. He's up at the road laying down with the ambulance at this point.
Yeah, and even you mentioned it's his left arm that's all ripped up. You'd think he
Yeah.
would be sitting in the driver's seat.
Well, not only that, but you would assume that I would have injuries on my right side.
Yeah, for sure.
There's 6 inches between us. And he's torn up. And I have one scratch. And that's all I could show him. I'm like, right there, see? And they could not believe that I had been in that wreck. I was 100% alert. I hadn't gone into shock. I was completely coherent. I was calm. I was able to talk to them. I was even joking with them. And I'm like, yeah, I'm just collecting up our stuff because it's kind of flown everywhere. And they're like, oh, okay. So I continued to collect stuff while they're kind of processing the scene. And I'd found our duffel bags. I'd found our backpacks. And I hadn't found those bagpipes yet. And then I looked over, and I could see this kind of black, crumpled plastic case.
No.
Now, those of us who were pipers in the early and mid-90s are familiar with this black case. It is a black plastic polycarbonate case with like a diamond on it on both sides.
Yeah, and it's got like the kind of alligator skin thing going on.
Yeah.
Yeah, I've got
And
a case like that.
it's big too. I mean,
Yeah.
it's like 2.5 feet long and like 1.5 feet tall and like probably 8 inches wide. You know, I mean, it's a hefty case, and I mean, you know, it holds bagpipes. Anyway, I saw it, and it didn't look good. It wasn't a flat case anymore. It was crunched down. It looked like the car. It looked like it had actually flown out of the car and landed upright, and that the car had landed on top of it and then continued rolling, is what it looked like happened. Because it was accordioned down. And I just stopped, and my heart sank. And I walked over to that case, and I opened it up, and sorry, I still get emotional. I opened up that case, and my pipes were in so many pieces, and I didn't know what to do, and like I basically lost it. I started crying, and then the police came over and they saw that I was crying, and they said, "Oh, no, it's okay, it's okay. You have car insurance, you know, on your car." I said, "That's not it. That's not why I'm crying." And they said, "Oh, well, your boyfriend's going to be just fine. You know, we've got the ambulance here."
And you're
He's
like,
doing
forget
good.
my
It looks-"
boyfriend.
I know. He's like, he's coming out of shock. And I said, "That's not it either." And they're like, "Well, why are you crying?" And I pointed at my case, and I said, "My bagpipes." And they all looked down, and they go, "Oh, your bagpipes." Turns out that police band, or that police agency, had a bagpipe band.
So they were feeling your pain.
Yeah. And we all sat there crying over my bagpipes.
That's so. It's so silly, but also so beautiful. You know, like after this terrible accident, they're like, "No, everything's gonna be fine," and you're like, you're walking around okay and everything. But then this is the moment when the solidarity comes, and everybody's
Yep.
like, "No, tragedy has struck."
Yep. And they helped me like collect up some of the pieces. They helped me make sure everything was in the case. They helped me carry the case because it didn't close anymore. And they gingerly put my bagpipes in the back of their police car, like in the trunk. And I mean, my practice chanter, I had 2 practice chanters in there. They both survived. I have both of those still. This amazing adjustable blow stick that Don had manufactured. He designed and manufactured these incredible blow sticks that are adjustable. That survived. But every drone was snapped at the tuning pins.
Oh man. Do you remember
Yeah,
what
so-
kind of pipes these were?
They were Booth.
Yeah, I play some David Booths as well.
Yeah, I mean, not only were they Booth, but they were the set that my grandfather bought me.
Yeah, so they've got additional sentimental
Yeah.
value too.
And it was heartbreaking. And my Blackwood chanter,
Oh no, that's terrible.
it had split. It snapped at the neck, and then
Yeah.
it had this big crack running down it. And I still have it if anybody wants to see it.
I was gonna ask you if you'd saved any of the pieces.
Yeah. I tried playing on it, but it's got extra holes in it, so it doesn't sound
Right,
great.
yeah.
Anyway, so they took us back to the police station, and I didn't let those pipes out of my sight. I just carried that broken case with me everywhere. And the police, they felt so bad. Everybody's just like, "No," and a lot of them were like, "Can I see the bagpipes?" And I'd show them, and they'd be like, "No."
Oh, yeah.
My boyfriend's cut up and bleeding.
Yeah,
It's
nobody's paying
obvious.
any attention to him.
But it's the bagpipes we're all worried about. But and I told him, I'm like, bones heal. I don't care, if I broke every bone in my body, I don't care. Bones heal, bagpipes don't.
Yeah, if only.
So yeah, basically, yeah, that's my broken bagpipe story. Yeah, they never. So Don tried to repair them, and he got them so that they could play, but they weren't playing very well.
Yeah.
Unfortunately, the pipes don't exist anymore.
Mm-hmm.
what I have left of them now is my original blow stick, and I have my Blackwood chanter that was broken, and I have my blow stick, the adjustable blow stick that was in them at the time. But yeah, everything else gone.
Do you what kind of pipes do you play now?
I'm on Booth.
Oh, great. Well, if it ain't broke, don't fix. Well, that saying doesn't really work in this case, does it?
Right.
More like, even if it's broke, don't fix it, right? Just stick with what's
in
good.
This case, when they're broken that bad,
Yeah.
they're just beyond saving. And at that point, what I should have done with them was probably just glued them back together and just had them just to have.
Oh, sure. Just to have them, maybe put them on display or something.
Yeah, just to have my set of pipes. But I mean, all the imitation ivory, all of that was broken up real bad.
Yeah, you'd have to spend as much money as you'd probably have to spend more money than a new set of pipes to get something like that fixed. So
yeah, fixing those would have cost more than like the most expensive set of bagpipes in the world.
Mm-hmm.
So the value at that point is only sentimental.
Yeah,
but
I'm happy to know that you have like the chanter though and the blowpipe and stuff. You still have these little pieces to remember.
Oh yeah, I'll have to bring them and show you. I used to carry them with me in my pipe case all the time.
Yeah.
But they're sitting up on my dresser right now.
Mm.
But yep. But yeah, so after that, Dawn was able to get me another set of Booth pipes, an even better set.
Mm-hmm.
So the ones that got broken were the beginner pipes. They were $850. He got me the nice set that was $1,350.
Mm-hmm.
So, I mean, it was a huge step up, which was really great. I mean, I miss my original pipes dearly. I
Yeah,
will
of
never
course.
get over losing them. But my pipes that I have now, I love them.
Yeah.
And they're amazing. So.
Wow. Well, I am glad that you're okay, Vera. Of course, I am glad that you were okay through this accident. But what a story! Thank you for being willing to share it with all of us.
Yeah.
And I'm not sure what the moral is to draw from this, other than cherish your pipes while you have them, oil them, season your bag.
The moral is don't let your girlfriend drive your car.
That's right.
Because she'll wreck it. And if your girlfriend is driving the car, don't have bagpipes in the car.
Right,
Because
yeah.
she'll wreck it, and
your
pipes
bagpipes will get
smashed.
ruined.
That's the moral of the story, kids.